this weekend in the Premier League. So first off, on Friday night, Nottingham Forest beat Sheffield United by 2-1, with Awoni and Chris Wood on the score sheet and Aurier providing both assists. What do you think on the match?
I thought it was a good match to see where both teams were at, because both teams, I think, they'll be sort of in that relegation fight area, and I think Sheffield United, they just, in my opinion, I don't think Sheffield United have enough to stay up, as we put in our Prem predictions.
Go check that out, by the way.
Forest's home form is what will look to keep them up, really. That's what they sort of got to rely on to stay up, because their away form last season was shocking. So when they do play at home, they got to get results, and in fairness, on Friday night they did. And next we have Liverpool beating Bournemouth 3-1 in, well, sort of a tight game at first, really. It wasn't an easy win for Liverpool, but Zach, what were your thoughts on it?
Well, Liverpool did look very shaky early doors. Obviously, they could have been 2-0 down if it wasn't for that offside goal that Bournemouth scored. Alisson, Trent making mistakes, being sloppy on the ball. It was very disappointing to see. But knowing Liverpool, like their old self, they got into the match, got back into it, and obviously scored 3 goals and won 3-1. But there was a lot of talking points from that match. Obviously, Harvey will go into them as well, but the penalties and red card decisions, they were very debatable, weren't they?
As you said, it was big 3 points for Liverpool, but the McAllister red card, in my opinion, it was very controversial.
That was a yellow, that's not a red.
And the penalty, it's very soft on Szoboszlai, I won't lie. It was a very soft
There was
penalty.
contact, but
I would
how
give
can you
it.
go down that easily?
I would give it as a pen, in my opinion. I know most people would say no, but if that's your team, you're going to say that's a pen, and there was contact, but it was just obviously unfortunate to see stuff like that in the game, because
the way you went to the ground, it was like you got shot. But being a Liverpool fan myself, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to complain.
But I think the McAllister red card, Liverpool obviously they appealed to the FA about it, or appealed to whoever, because it wasn't that rash. Yes, McAllister went in with his studs, but it wasn't that high up the leg. He pulled out last second. I think it was a yellow card at worst. To say it's a red card, no. And none of the Bournemouth players appealed either.
That's what gave it away. The fact that no Bournemouth players appealed, no Liverpool fans were rushing the ref saying, no, I don't give it. There's no sort of any heat towards...
No, it wasn't. It's just McAllister saying, what on earth have I done?
Yeah, well, I think McAllister sort of, the way he's walking, he probably expected a yellow, and I think Jurgen Klopp said that, yellow, fair enough, and I do think it's a yellow, because there is contact made, he came in late, but I don't know about a red, because I've seen worse tackles and worse challenges, and I've seen them not become red. Look at Onana on Monday night against Wolves,
Or if you look at last season with Jota's tackle on Skip, and Skip's tackle on Diaz, they were both worse than this one.
Yeah, they were for sure, and they weren't given
constant inconsistencies. That's the thing. English referees.
That's what we need in the Premier League now, just consistency with the refs, and I just don't really see how that is a red card. And as you said, Liverpool have appealed it, and I'd expect that to be overturned.
You'd hope so.
I'd be shocked, because if it's not overturned, obviously it'd be massive problem for Liverpool, considering obviously how light they are in midfield and how good McAllister is.
Exactly.
So it'd be a big miss for Liverpool, and I do think that should get overturned. I'd be very surprised if it didn't.
But you got to give credit to Bournemouth. They did play very well, considering they lost 9-0 last year. They put a much better account of themselves on Saturday. I think the way Iraola gets them to play, they're going to go to these big grounds like Anfield, the Etihad, Old Trafford, etc., and they're going to play expansive football. They're not going to sit in like they did under Gary Neville and absorb pressure. They will go at teams and look to exploit them, and they did a very good job of that on Saturday. But obviously, Liverpool's quality came through in the end, and they won.
On another day, maybe Bournemouth could snatch a win, but obviously, like you said, Liverpool just have the quality and Bournemouth don't. But Iraola is a very good manager, and the way he's got them playing, and I think they are improving. You look at the West Ham the result against West Ham. I don't think that's a too bad a result either. No. And I think Bournemouth could look to push up the table with their new manager.
And now we travel over to Craven Cottage, where Fulham were humiliated on their own patch by Brentford. And Bournemouth with 2, Vissel with 1. Even without Tony there, Brentford are still scoring goals and playing really well. But obviously the controversial decision of Tim Ream getting sent off. What do you think of that?
I mean, I did think it was a penalty. Again, I think a lot of people are saying it's soft, and it sort of is, but it was a penalty. It was contact made, and unfortunately for Tim Ream, who's a pretty good defender. Actually,
he is. He's not bad at all.
He's not even bad at all. I think Pep Guardiola once said last season that he'd actually sign him if he wasn't older.
Really?
Yeah, he did say that. I genuinely remember.
He's in his mid-30s now, Tim Ream, isn't
he? He's old. He's too old to obviously be making moves like that. But solid defender. Unfortunately for him, it was a penalty, and I think Fulham they're looking a bit troublesome.
Mitrovic gone now.
Yes, it's not. I mean,
will Jimenez be able to pick up the slack?
Possibly. I mean, they got a win against Everton, but it really was not convincing.
Everyone beats Everton.
Well, to be fair, yeah, you're not wrong. But unfortunately for Everton, they just didn't have a clinical striker, and we'll move on to them later. But they didn't have a clinical striker to put Fulham to the sword last week, and had they had that, they would have beaten Fulham, I think. And I think that was more of a sort of a 50-50 game. Everton had loads of chances, so I think Fulham got away with that. But here is just where you saw Brentford show their quality, and Fulham just like you said, Mitrovic is going, and they're looking very troublesome. I don't think they'll go down, but I think
they do look quite toothless on attack.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in our predictions, I just don't see Fulham pushing on from last season. With the likes of Mitrovic going, and And I feel like it's more of a second season syndrome kicking in for them. You know, I don't know. I don't think they'll go down, but I just don't see him pushing up like they were last season. And hopefully for them, I think the goal. I don't really know what the goal is for Fulham fans. To be fair, I'd love to know. Fulham fans, if there's any Fulham fans, put in the
comment down below. Was it mid-table?
Yeah, I guess so. But for me,
mediocrity, really, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, I'd say looking at it, you probably just want to stay up at this point because you know, like you said, losing Mitrovic.
At least they got Palhinha.
Yeah, true. Okay, Palhinha's a quality player, but like I said, is it enough to push you in the mid-table like maybe they're expecting? I don't know. But like I said, they're looking a bit troublesome. I'm not sure if Fulham have quite got the quality to sort of build on from last season. But hopefully for Fulham fans, hopefully they do. But maybe this is just sort of a blip game. But for me, I think
it's a very good Brentford team.
It is, yeah, that is true. And I can understand that. But for me, I think it's more problems to come for Fulham, and we'll see that later this season. And next up, we have a dominating performance by Brighton against Wolves, beating them 4-1. Zach, what were your thoughts on the game?
Well, that was a really good performance from Brighton. And we saw Wolves last week humiliate Man United at Old Trafford. Obviously, they play Brighton at home and they get absolutely trounced. Matoma scoring a completely brilliant goal, world class from Matoma. Solly March becoming a better player again and again. We're seeing him develop under the Zerbi. 2 goals, Enciso 2 assists, and Estepinian with a goal as well. He's becoming one of the most complete left backs in the Premier League. So yeah, what were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I think Brighton have really shown their quality this season. Could they build on from last season?
Top of the league at the moment.
They are top of the league, and I think they could build on from last season the way they're going. It's just obviously whether, you know, when Europa League kicks in, that's when we'll see how good Brighton truly are. But right now, they're
James
on
Milner
fire.
filling in at right back as well.
Yeah, he's a good signing. They've made good signings, and Brighton have got a good mix of more experienced and older players and younger players. You know, that you like of Enciso, your Gilmore,
Evan Ferguson.
Oh mate, Matoma. There's so many we can't even remember. And Brighton is they look so good. And even as a Tottenham fan, I just love watching them play. They are just such a good team. And De Zerbi is just. He just somehow makes this Brighton team even better and better, despite losing McAllister and Caicedo. It's ridiculous.
Just year on year getting better and better, this Brighton team. But I think it's also worth a mention about Wolves. Their lack of goal threat showed once again. Because United, they could have beaten United 2-3-0 if they had a proper striker up top. And here again, once again, only scored 1 goal. I know Brighton are a good defensive team, but they need to sign a striker. I know with all of their financial things, it's quite hard for them to maybe put in an offer. But get someone on a loan or someone who can put the ball in the back of the net.
Look at their performance against Old Trafford. I mean, had they just had just a somewhat clinical striker, they'd have probably won that game. And it's just unfortunate for Wolves that they don't have that clinical man up front that they desperately
could cost
need.
them this season, couldn't it?
It's been an issue for a while now as well.
With Jimenez's head injury, he hasn't been the same player. They haven't really. Fabio Silva hasn't filled the boots of Raul Jimenez. No. They're trying to put players in that position that might not necessarily work.
Silva actually had a good chance against Brighton and during the game, and it's a 1-on-1. He just didn't get his body position right. He just didn't put it away and. Still managed to save it, but it's just such a shame for Wolves because they just need that clinical man, and I think it could spell big troubles for Wolves this season if they don't find that clinical man. And I feel like I know it's Brighton, but it's just quite hard to see where Wolves go from. I mean, like I said, they played well against United, and if they can perform like that more,
just put the ball in the back of the net. Yeah, they could stay out this season.
It should be more of a matter of time if they just before they put the ball in the back of the net. But it's just how much time can you give it? Because you know, if you're bottom of the league, I know they're bottom of the league last season, but if you're bottom of the league and like going in, months into the season, the pressure just slowly piles on and on and on and on, and it sort of just gets a bit out of hand for Wolves then. And so. Hopefully for Wolves' sake, I think most fans would probably want to stay up right now with the financial issues that they have, and hopefully for them they stay up. But after this performance, obviously, it's quite hard to gain some confidence from anything, really.
And now we move on to the biggest game of the weekend, the game in which we saw Ten Hag's United get humiliated once again by Ange Postecoglou's hungry and young and firing Tottenham team. So what were your thoughts on the match, Charles?
Absolutely buzzing about it. It was a brilliant performance from Tottenham. The first half was obviously a little bit more 50-50. I did think we were sort of the better team. Well, I think United probably the better team going into that. I'd take that back. And I think Postecoglou said it. We probably were slightly fortunate to go into the half time at 0-0. We did have chances in the first half, hit the crossbar twice in a row, literally seconds after. And I think, had United had that clinical man up front, maybe we could.
Fernandes and Rashford were missing some easy chances.
Fernandes and Rashford both missed headers, and I think we were quite fortunate to get away from that. But we went in at half time 0-0, and we just came out as the better team. And I think that second half we absolutely dominated them. And I think a lot of people will be surprised by that performance. I think most people are surprised, but I was obviously slightly nervous, but I wasn't surprised by the fact that we won just because United looked so bad against Wolves.
Ten Hag can't settle on a shape or a system or
that midfield
where to play. Shocking. Yeah,
our midfield just completely dominated them. Basuma obviously fantastic.
Casemiro didn't look like he wanted to be there, did he?
Casemiro's absolutely run over. Basuma, one of the best defensive midfielders in the league right now, 100%. And if you watch Tottenham, you'll see how good he is.
He's perfectly complemented by Maddison as well.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, our midfielders at the moment is really good.
It's cooking for you.
It is. And when we get Banter and Kerr back, I can't wait for it. But I'm just buzzing about this result, and I think hopefully we can build on from this and provide more wins and hopefully get us back into that sort of top 6 area, because that's where we need to be. That is our goal, to be honest. And a top 4 push is obviously maybe a little bit too much, but I'm very happy with the result. It's a brilliant result, and hopefully we can build on from this. And I think most people that were putting us in like 9th and 10th place, which I saw a lot. I'm just saying, I saw a lot. I feel like you'll be eating your words soon. I saw about 50 comments. I've screenshotted them all, don't worry. I saw about 50 comments saying Postecoglou will be gone by December, and I can't wait until when it comes to December. I can't wait until how we see Postecoglou playing. And I know for sure he won't be sacked, because that'd be the most stupid thing to sack him anyway. And United, I mean, there's some issues there, aren't there?
I just think with Mount, Fernandes and Casemiro, we thought it would be a great midfield, but the balance isn't really there.
No.
They're playing Mount and different players out of position. It's almost as if United maybe need to sign another midfielder who's more of a box-to-box, a pure box-to-box midfielder, like we saw Wijnaldum for Liverpool a few seasons ago, who's good in both boxes, who can obviously help alongside Casemiro defensively, because Mount and Fernandes, as good as they are, they're not really defensive-minded midfield players, and Casemiro gets isolated a lot, and obviously they've got to think about what to do with Rashford. So there are a lot of problems for Ten Hag and Man United, and it'd be interesting to see how he fixes them, and if he does keep his job come the end of the season.
Well, I think it's pretty stupid from Ten Hag, though, to put Rashford up front.
He's not a striker, is he?
No, he's not. And Bruno Fernandes on the wing. I mean, it's like putting from Arsenal, it's like putting Odegaard in the right wing and Saka up front. It makes no sense at all. It's your two best players, Bruno Fernandes and Rashford. They are your two best players, in my opinion, I think, for United. Going forward. So why would you put them out of position? I just don't understand. Like, you'd put Rashford on the left wing and put Fernandes in the midfield, because I'm pretty sure I saw Bruno Fernandes on that right wing come towards the end of the game. I know he started in that midfield role, and that is where the issues are, because the problem is with Mount and Bruno Fernandes, they sort of like to play audacious balls, and it often leads into them giving it away.
A conservative player in there.
Was not. Casemiro's getting caught out because it's all good. I don't want to. Obviously, I'm not trying to slander him, because I do think he's a brilliant defensive midfielder. But when you've got Modric and Kroos who keep the ball so well, nice intricate passes, it's very rare that they're going to give the ball away. But with Mount and Bruno Fernandes both looking to play audacious balls, it's quite hard to sort of keep the ball and maintain the ball. It's hard to sort of keep possession.
And Ten Hag likes possession as well.
He does, yeah. And I don't think United quite have the players to play the possession.
Frankie de Jong would have been a fantastic signing if they could have got him over the line. But I think he wants to stay in Barcelona, doesn't he?
Well, by the looks of it, yeah. But I think United don't have the player, as you said, they needed someone like de Jong, because I don't think they had the players that sort of play that possession-based football that Ten Hag wants to play. Because you look at the likes of Rashford, he's better on the counter-attack, and you look at the likes of Casemiro too, who's sort of more...
he's not like a Rodri, is he?
No, he's not. You don't see Casemiro getting on the ball and playing it out. That's just not the kind of CDM he is. And that's the thing. They sort of have players that are more suited to counter-attacking football.
A lot of players from the Solskjaer era are still there.
That's why it's quite hard for United to sort of offload them players, I guess. But, I mean, Maguire, supposed to be going West Ham. Looks like he's staying. McTominay, staying. Wan-Bissaka as well. I forgot to mention him. He's not suited to possession-based football. Again, a defensive right-back. These players aren't sort of suited to Ten Hag's system, and I think United need to just sort of get there, because Ten Hag wants to evolve. Last season, United did play on the back foot. That's how Ten Hag played. Look at the ways they did win against the big teams. They played counter-attack, and that's how they played. But he's obviously looking to sort of play more on the front foot, as it's its second season, which you would.
Keep more of the ball, retain possession.
Exactly. You want to progress. You don't want to keep playing counter-attacking football. That's not the manager he is, and you want to progress. But you can't do that with the players that they sort of have. But Ten Hag also does deserve responsibility. I mean, he made Mason Mount his priority signing. I don't know why he did that.
It was interesting because he seems like a player who could play a number of different positions and has a lot of good qualities about him. But at the moment, it seems very hard to try and figure out where... It's a bit like Havertz at Arsenal. Where is his best position? Mount, Foden and Havertz are three players who, because they don't have their best position spot on, like there's no one really knows where they're best suited to playing. It almost negatively impacts them because they're constantly chopping and changing of where they're playing, and they can't settle down, can they?
Well, no, they can't. And I think it's just disappointing that Ten Hag's put Mount as a priority signing when they're desperate for goal scorer. I mean, we've seen that Haaland's out injured, but can you really rely on a 20-year-old kid? Is he? Can you really seriously tell me that you've got to rely on a 20-year-old kid to push you into the top four? Exactly. Not even for a title there. We're talking about top four now, probably, for United fans. Because the way they're going at the moment, they're not going to get top four. So that's the thing. You were talking about Haaland, a 20-year-old kid coming in to even get United top four. It's the amount of pressure that's going to be on that kid.
There's a lot of risk with the moves in the market.
Exactly, and it could sort of, fumble really. That pressure could sort of get to him and hamper his performances. And when you look at likes of Harry Kane, obviously moving to Bayern Munich, United, in my opinion, should have gone for him. I'm glad he didn't go there.
Should have gone all in for him, put all the money on the table.
Absolutely. I mean, Harry Kane, if you put him in that United team, he'd instantly up the levels by a ridiculous amount. Like, if you put Harry Kane in that United team...
That's front three, or that front line is 10 years better.
I mean, if you put Harry Kane in that United team, I think they'd probably get the win. In fact, they would, because they'd have the clinical striker up front. Bruno Fernandes did create chances at times in the first half. And I think Kane, because he offers more than just goal scoring, he'd absolutely elevate that United team, but they just weren't willing to put the money up for him, and they've got Haaland, and now he's just got a lot of pressure on him to perform, and I guess we'll see how it goes, but I'm not so confident that a 20-year-old kid having pressure like that, I'm not sure. And next up, we have the champions, Manchester City, beating Newcastle 1-0 in a fantastic performance, in where we saw Phil Foden and Julian Alvarez star in that performance. But Zach, what were your thoughts on it?
Oh, I think it was very interesting to see Foden in this new role. He's been given the chance now. Now De Bruyne is out with the injury, and I think we can see him flourish, because for so many years at Manchester City, we can see the qualities there. He's an excellent technical player, but he hasn't produced enough goals and assists to warrant a starting place in the team, especially over the likes of De Bruyne, the likes of Bernardo Silva, who may not be a stat merchant, but his qualities off the ball and on the ball are there for all to see. But yeah, he was really, really good the other day, Foden. Alvarez as well, what a cracking finish as well.
For sure, Alvarez.
It's like,
absolutely
even though Haaland doesn't score, he's still getting goals as well. It's like, there's goals all around this Man City team. They will never, ever struggle to put the ball in the net.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what you said about Foden, by the way. In that inside role since De Bruyne's injury, who's out for a few months, hopefully we can see Phil Foden sort of fill that role in and become the player that, most people think he will, because at the moment he's not really been performing to them levels yet. I mean, whether that's down to injury and just not enough, performances. Last season didn't really sort of get to them levels that we know he can do. And hopefully this season, like I said, with the De Bruyne injury, we may see that from Phil Foden in that inside role. It's where he got picked up his assist for Alvarez, who, as we said earlier, cracking finish, and like you said, with them and Haaland up front, absolutely lethal. But with Haaland getting no goals against Newcastle, I'm sure he'll get some in the future, because that was a surprise to not see him score. But he didn't really get loads and loads of
Botman did very well at marking him, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Very physical defender, Botman.
He did, and Newcastle defended quite well, but that was also sort of their problem, because they didn't have enough going forward. What are your thoughts on sort of Newcastle performance now?
Well, only one shot on target the whole match. They did look a bit blunt in attack, and then sometimes I do think Eddie Howe teams, although they look at home to be a very expansive team who can obviously punish the opposition like they did against Villa, but I think sometimes they do look a bit blunt. Against Liverpool last season at home, they didn't look like scoring. No. They didn't look like scoring as such against City on Saturday night, and it was the same last season against Arsenal. When Arsenal went there, they did look a little bit blunt too. But it's just, I still feel like sometimes this Newcastle team, they need maybe a player who offers something with a different dynamic, or maybe Eddie Howe needs to experiment something else tactically to get the best out of this bunch, or just elevate his tactical game so he's more flexible when he's playing different types of opposition. But nevertheless, losing 1-0 to City, and I think Foden will, if he plays really well, when De Bruyne comes back, I'm not saying this will happen, but he may struggle to get back in the team, because he will be rusty, and if Foden is knocking up goals and assists and playing that fluid play, which we know he's capable of, I think it could cause a lot of problems for De Bruyne when he comes back. But, a man of De Bruyne's quality, you would expect him to slot straight back in. But yeah, a 1-0 loss to City. Newcastle fans probably won't be too asked about that. Nah. It's arguably the hardest game on the calendar going away to the Etihad. So
yeah, for sure. I don't think Newcastle fans will have much complaints after their performance against Villa. Absolutely dominant performance, 5-1 last week. And I don't think Newcastle fans have anything to worry about, because you're coming up against the best team in the world. And I'm sure Newcastle will push that top four. Being underestimated by loads this season, including myself. I'm sure you've put them outside the top four, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I even put them 7th. So I've definitely underestimated them. They definitely could still finish there, because Champions League football could affect them. But right now, Newcastle sort of proving everyone wrong. I know they lost to City, but that performance against Villa, and I'm sure in the future they'll pick
Liverpool
up some
next week. That'd be an interesting match. Will they beat my team? Interesting to see, because we usually go there very confident with our tails up. We generally do beat Newcastle. Well, if you look at our recent records against them in recent times, but yeah, they will be a force at home. They are against anyone, but that'll be interesting to see where both teams are at and who starts for both teams as well, because there's a lot of combinations of midfield with Liverpool and even with Newcastle as well, in terms of does Guimaraes play deeper or Tonali, and obviously with Liverpool with McAllister if his red card does get overturned, and Endo and Szoboszlai and Elliott. There's lots of choices for both teams. It'd be interesting to see.
Both teams battling out for top four, so it's race for Europe really, race for Champions League.
It is early doors,
but
game. We expect both teams by the end of the season to be in and around the same position.
Place, yeah. And it's a central game for both teams. I think it's good to know where both teams are at. I think it's good to sort of assess them, who's better. As you said, Liverpool come out on top recently, but at St James's Park, are Newcastle a better team this season? They look at despite me not rating their summer window like most people,
it's still improving the squad.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, their energy levels are just ridiculous from that Newcastle team, and I feel like the midfield battle with that Liverpool game going on to next week, I think that'd be essential. And
what do you think will be a good season for Eddie Howe come the end of the year? Do you think he has to win something? Do you think he has to go deep in the Champions League, top 4? What would you classify as a successful season for Eddie Howe?
I think top 4. It would be a successful season straight up top 4 because
even if it finishes trophyless.
Yes, yeah, because I just think you look at top 4, no one's put them there. No, despite finishing top 4 last season, no one's put him there. But if he finishes outside that top 4 and he does go trophyless, that's where we could see some issues. What do you think?
Well, if he goes deep in the Champions League and they finish outside the top 4, at least they'll show there that they can do good in one competition. But I think if they don't finish outside the top 4 and they get knocked out the group stages of the Champions League and they don't win or go far in either of the domestic cups, then Newcastle may look to see if Eddie Howe is still the right man for the job.
Yeah, for sure, because Newcastle fans' expectations are probably a lot more a lot more now. I don't think they expect to be competing for the title and Champions League trophies, but they want to see some progression, as most fans do.
The only way is that, if you look at City, when Sheikh Mansour came in, they literally pretty much only went up. They didn't really have many blips and blunders of not winning trophies season in, season out, because for the last 10 years, City have basically won a trophy every season pretty much. Yeah. So Newcastle will expect the same. And it will take a few years for them to reach that really top level that we know they can with the finances and the players they've got. But I think they'll do okay at the moment. And now we move on to Villa's annihilation of Everton at Villa Park. A really good performance from Villa, bouncing back from their defeat at Newcastle last week, scoring 4 goals, even without Watkins scoring as well, which shows they can score goals when Watkins isn't on it. And Everton look really poor, lack of goal threat. And for a Sean Dyche team to not defend well and concede goals like that, it's very poor.
I mean, the players just look clueless. I mean, what's Ashley Young doing that throw? Absolutely shocking throw. He had the ball and he just threw it straight to the Villa player. I mean, what was going on there? I just don't think the players look like they know what they're doing at this point. I mean, they just don't look, as you said, Sean Dyche's team's always defensively solid.
They're very resolute, aren't they?
And they were just so easy to just carve open. It's nothing like a Sean Dyche team would look. They're always solid. You look at his Burnley teams, they're always very solid. And I thought that's what Everton would be like. I didn't think Everton would ever get cut open like that. I always thought they'd be defensively solid. I'm not expecting them to win this game. I thought they'd lose, 2-0 around that sort of scoreline. But the way they got absolutely battered, it was unreal. But credit to Villa, absolutely, can't take anything away from them.
They'll have a really good season under Emery. They've got a lot of good players, play a good brand of football, and they'll stifle a lot of teams at Villa Park. It's not an easy place to go to.
For sure.
And although Emery traditionally isn't a manager who does well in the league, he's usually a European manager, I think this season we'll see Villa finish strongly in the league and go deep in Europe and potentially win, obviously, the Conference League as well.
Yeah. And moving on to a 3-1 win for West Ham against Chelsea, of all teams, after £1 billion spent. Embarrassing from them. Pochettino in the mud, love to see it. Anyway, as we're talking about West Ham, fantastic performance for West Ham though. What was your thoughts on the game? I thought they're brilliant.
Well, we filmed the video on David Moyes. You'll see that come out soon about why we think he shouldn't be in the job at West Ham. But on Sunday, he proved why he should. But generally, his West Ham teams, they do beat the big teams at home. They come out with those performances where they're hard to beat. It's a cagey affair. They hit teams on their counter-attack. They use Antonio as a target man and they play off him with Paqueta, Bowen, Benrahma, etc. So it was interesting to see how they did stifle Chelsea. But Enzo Fernandez's missed penalty, and Chelsea did miss quite a few chances.
They did, yeah.
So I think they'll be ruining those missed chances. Yeah. And I think if they did score them, West Ham maybe wouldn't have won the game. But even with 10 men as well, Chelsea should be beating a 10-man West Ham team.
I mean, £1 billion spent and you can't even score. You can't even beat West Ham. It's shocking, isn't it? But I guess we'll see what happens with Chelsea.
Good goal from Chukwuemeka there.
Well, quality goal.
But he came off injured.
So it's unfortunate, really, Chukwuemeka, because he is actually a pretty decent player in fairness. He's one of the players I rate, and it was unfortunate to see him come off for Chelsea. Well, not for me anyway, but for Chelsea to come off. I don't want to wish injuries there, but it was really. There's a lot of questions around Chelsea. I mean, where do you think they go from here?
Well, it'd be interesting to see, because I think I read that or heard that Chelsea have one win in their last 14 Premier League matches or something, which is very poor from a team who've spent that much money. But I think you just got to give this team time to gel. And I think come Christmas time, if Pochettino's still in the job, because we know how ruthless Chelsea are, they'll start to build upon results then. Start to become more of a fluid way of playing football. They'll start to become more of a winning machine. Not like a team who's going to win 10-15 on the spin. Maybe that will be in a couple of years if Poch is still there. But in terms of maintaining high-level performances week in, week out, and beating opposition who they really should be beating.
And as much as I love to see Poch in the mud after that performance, I will say he is a great manager, and I do think he is a good fit for Chelsea. I think he's sort of got that ability with young players to sort of make them perform and push them up the table, and I do think that Poch has the ability to make Chelsea great. But what I would say is, just the minute it goes wrong, the minute they start losing a few games in the trot, then Chelsea fans will be absolutely fuming.
Yeah, we know how ruthless they are.
They don't have patience as it is, let alone with someone who's a Tottenham man. You know,
and neither do the board, do they?
Neither did the board, no. So that's the thing. I mean, this could go horribly wrong. And if this appointment does go wrong, which is a little bit too early to be talking about it, I will say that. It's nowhere near saying Poch should be sacked yet. We shouldn't be at that time yet.
I think they just got to give him time because, with you, when he's managing you, his quality is there for all to see. He can play different formations. He's tactically flexible. He can get the best out of young players, and there are a lot of young, exuberant, exciting players at Chelsea who will flourish under Poch and under another manager who may prefer the older lads or someone like Mourinho. I'm not saying they would get Mourinho, but Mourinho doesn't tend to favour the young lads. We saw at Tottenham, didn't he? He liked to stick with the old guards. So it'd be interesting to see how Chelsea do. But I think this performance is one to forget for Pochettino's men, and they should move forward, and I think they will do better because we saw how good they were against Liverpool last week.
Yeah, they had the ability to perform well.
Exactly.
They have certainly had the ability to perform well, but after £1 billion spent, you'd hope they beat West Ham, but I guess that's not possible at the moment. But I guess we'll move on to next week. We'll see what Chelsea do. Like I said, we've got to hope for Pochettino's sake that it doesn't go horribly wrong, because if that appointment goes wrong, it's looking really, really ropey, really, for Todd Bowley. It's not good at all, spending £1 billion, and then, I know I keep saying that, but spent £1 billion, and then obviously having Graham Potter and Pochettino, Frank Lampard, all these appointments, and if this goes wrong, it's probably time up from it, this rate.
And now we move on to the final match of the weekend. Monday night, Palace versus Arsenal at Selhurst Park, and Arsenal only won 1-0. A narrow win for the Gunners. Tomiyasu, obviously, he got sent off, his second yellow card. First was for time wasting, second was for putting back the Palace player, and it was probably fair, wasn't it?
I'd agree with that. I didn't really see any issues with that. The time wasting was a bit too long, and it was silly on his part to pull the Palace player's shirt. So, yeah, I can't really argue with that. Yeah,
it was an interesting match as well, because although Arsenal were the better team and they limited the Palace for very few shots in the first half, Palace did play quite well and they had chances. There was that Eze penalty call. Do you think that's a penalty for Eze when he weaved his way through the Arsenal defence?
I thought it was at the time. The only thing is, I think Partey might get a clip of the ball, but I think he's, on another day that gets given. I think that's where the inconsistency shows again.
Fantastic dribbler, Eze. The way he weaved it was like watching Lionel Messi.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, that dribbling.
But it's worth a mention tactically that Martinelli, he looked to be utilised in a different position. I didn't watch the Forest game last week, but tonight it was almost he would move inside and then Havertz would move out wide to Martinelli's position, and they'd almost swap around. I didn't know if that was because of Palace and their personnel, or was it to confuse the opposition, but it was interesting what Arteta was doing there. And yeah, bar that, it was just a pretty relatively normal match on a Monday night.
I feel like Arsenal didn't create loads.
No.
But they did create enough chances to, unfortunately for them, they had to rely on the penalty to get them win because they don't have a clinical man up front. And
Nketiah missed that chance over the
doors.
Like
I said,
hit the post as well.
Yeah, I was saying it when we were watching the game. You can't have Nketiah up front and win the league. I'm sorry, you can't. You can't have Eddie Nketiah up front and
top striker would at least scored one of those two chances.
Yeah, two chances, and you've got to be scoring both of them at least. You've got to be scoring one of them.
He is wasteful, Nketiah. It's not just this as a fluke game. He does waste big chances frequently for Arsenal.
And I think you can't rely on that man to win your league. So the quicker Jesus comes back, the better. But even he's not the most clinical of players, and I feel like they need that clinical man at the top. But it was a decent performance. Sort of a solid win for Arsenal. I don't think they were too impressive. I think they were just
a bit slow to get going this season.
I didn't think they were.
But 6 points out of 6.
Oh no,
they'll take 2 wins. Yeah. They'll be happy with that.
Yeah, you can't compare with the results. They're both wins at the end of the day. I just don't think they look convincing in my opinion right now.
They started last season off better, I think, personally.
They did. Yeah, I think they played better last season in fairness.
But obviously we'll just see how the season progresses.
I guess we'll see. Yeah, I mean, could Arsenal win the title? What do you think?
I still think it will be City, but obviously with De Bruyne's injury, I think City will be fine, and I still think they'll win the league, but that may have an effect on their form long term.
I think City will just clear, don't they?
Yeah, I
think
agree.
City will just clear. I think they just you can't stop them.
And for Palace as well, although we said Arsenal did defend well, if Palace had a proper clinical striker, a better one than Edward and Mateta, they would have probably got something out of this game today. Because Palace, yes, their chances were few and far between, but when they were there, they were severely wasted by their forwards.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think Edouard had a chance, header. That should have been on target.
Ayew had a couple chances here and there.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate for Palace. I just don't think, I think it comes down to quality. I just don't think Palace quite had the quality. And I mean, if it wasn't for that penalty, we could be talking about a 0-0 draw, a boring 0-0 draw here,
which is a great result for Palace
for sure. Absolutely, considering what their expectations are this season. After losing Zaha, that wouldn't be a bad result.
They got to keep shaking the Corey though, because although Lerma has been very good for Palace and he is a top player, alongside Sheikh Doucouré, that will allow that midfield base to be very protective of the back line and obviously help with moving and progressing balls forward. But Sheikh Doucouré, I want him at Liverpool. He's a quality player. Maybe not the most comfortable in possession, but when he doesn't have the ball, in terms of tackling, being tenacious, being in the right place at the right time, he's top.
Fantastic. And as we've mentioned earlier, Eze as well. Eze's crucial for Palace. They don't want to be losing him. I know he's been linked to the couple
really
of clubs.
Good player, isn't he?
You can't be losing him. With the fact that they kept Elise is very good, who didn't play tonight.
It was interesting. Maybe he got an injury or something.
I assume through injury. I don't know too much because I don't follow Palace, but I don't know too much. But I assume through injury, which is a bit of a miss. I feel like if they maybe had him that right hand side instead of Ayew, could we have seen more chances created on that side, especially after the 10 men? Exactly, Arsenal, you know, could we have seen? So
they did create quite a few chances near the end of the match.
They did, yeah.
For large portions, they didn't create loads, but that last 10 minutes, there was a flurry of chances for Palace, and they should have really made Arsenal pay.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that. I think Palace were, slightly unfortunate, but again, it just comes down to quality, and I think Arsenal they had that. And like I said, if it weren't for the penalty, maybe we could be talking about Arsenal having a few issues. But I guess we'll see, next week and with the next couple of weeks. I know Arsenal have got Man United coming up. That'll be a crucial game. I mean, the way United are at the moment.
You'd expect them to win that. But
yeah, they should absolutely.
You never know. Last season, it was a cracking match at the end.
Oh, very entertaining. I love that game. It was
very good, yeah. So that is the end of this show this weekend in the Premier League. If you have enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe for more shows just like this one, and comment down below what were your thoughts on the matches this weekend in the Premier League. Hope you have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.